Welcome back, everybody, to Two Guys in a Stack of Comics. My name is Reed. Mike is still a bit on a trip. He should be back hopefully this weekend, but just one guy for today. I wanted to walk through our best new comics of the week. Apologies on the voice here, been going through allergies all week. But pretty good week at the shop. About 7 books for this week that I think are worth recommending. I think worth the read, worth your time. 3 from Marvel, 2 from DC, and 2 indie books that came out for this week. And wanted to highlight, I'll start with Marvel stuff first, and what I thought was probably the most entertaining comic this week, which is Ultimate Wolverine, number 11. We've had Chris Condon on this, Alessandro Cappuccio, the former artist on Moon Knight. What I'll give Ultimate Wolverine, this book is a culmination of everything that's happened for the first 10 issues. We finally see some major consequences. There's a lot of character deaths and consequences in this issue, as a lot of Wolverine's allies are sort of taken off the board in a major way. And, one of the things that I really liked about this story, we've presented this world in the Ultimate Universe where our heroes are, kind of at odds with the major powers that it be. And I think one of the interesting things that this universe has done is anytime the heroes have really run up into the big guys, they've suffered major losses. And so I think this fits perfectly for Wolverine, and that the inherent tragedy of this character shines through quite a bit here. And that, had this arc where he was their Winter Soldier, he was a brainwashed soldier, he escaped, and since then there's been a lot of issues of things going right for him. And I think overall, the way the stakes escalate in this, the way that you see players taken off the board, the final conflict they've set up for Wolverine with the Rasputins, it's everything you're looking for in a great story. In that, one thing that I have to give this Ultimate Universe, and I know it's going to be cut short, but one thing I will say is a series like Ultimate Wolverine really stands out because it has a more cinematic feel to it. And this is kind of that major, loss right before we get our final confrontation. And I don't know how the book will end up ending, but I think one of the great things about this is it's been a long time since I've read a Wolverine story that really felt like it was worthy of the character, where the character felt right, where the character felt like he was being put at odds that he couldn't handle, and there was major doubts as to what would happen. And I applaud Chris Condon and I applaud Marvel for letting them take the risks they have with the Ultimate Universe. In that it's the first time in a while where I was genuinely surprised by what happened in the comic book, the losses that are suffered. In this, it's a fantastic run of Wolverine comics. It's the best Wolverine run probably in 10 to 15 years. It's crazy that it has to come from an alternate universe, but I can't recommend this run highly enough. If you've been burnt out on X-Men, burnt out on Wolverine stuff, I think this is really worth reading, and this really drove home how committed they are to this sort of storytelling with this. It's sad it's ending in a few issues, but fantastic artwork throughout. Alessandro Cappuccio just draws Wolverine so well, and I think his ability to deliver on major scenes in the book and just deliver action, and then when he has to, these emotionally resonant moments that take place at the end because of the tragedy that happens in the book, just top-notch work from everybody involved. This is a really, really good comic book, and if you haven't been reading Ultimate Wolverine, definitely recommend catching up on that one. Other 2 Marvel books that I'm going to recommend for this week. Sadly, this is the end of Red Hulk. The series number 10 came out this week, the final issue. Ben Percy on this one, I believe Guzman on this one, so no Jeff Shaw on it. But a really, really fun comic book overall, issue 1 through 10. You had this great narrative, and this is one of the only books that really took place in the One World Under Doom thing. But you didn't really have to know much about the crossovers. Really, all that took place in this is, Doctor Doom kidnapped Thaddeus Ross, and Ross had led a prison break to escape and try to, get even. And overall, I thought the series had some really great action, some really sharp dialogue, some really interesting pairings when you had Red Hulk with Machine Man and Deathlock. And this was a book I wasn't anticipating picking up. My child is a huge Red Hulk fan, and so I mainly got it because I wanted him to have some comics to read because he's been obsessed with that character for, basically since he saw the commercial with the character a couple months back with the movie coming out. And I largely picked it up in the future. He had some books, but this ended up being a really, really good read. And I got to give Ben Percy a lot of credit. He did a great job narrating, weaving this through. It does feel a little rushed at the end, but I think that's largely in that I don't know that he for sure knew this was ending at 10 issues, but a really fun throwback sort of comic book. I think if you want a book that's just about escapism and action and having some cool character moments and some cool battles, I think this really delivered. Highlighting Thaddeus Ross's character the way they did, it's one of the cool things that you can do with comic books is you have some of these nemesises that have been around forever, and that Ross is one of the earliest, Hulk villains, and yet they used him so well in this series. He's become such a layered character. Overall, this was a really fun series. And I think something that if you want to then to collect and trade and just have some fun with it, is it going to change, your life? Is it going to be a comic that 30 years from now people are going to dust off and talk as a classic? No. But if you like the medium and you want something fun to read and you just want a comic that kind of is similar to what we used to get on the shelves a lot more often in the late 90s and 2000s, I think this is a good fit for you. Third book I'll recommend, Spider-Man Noir, #2. This to me, Eric Larson is on this book as the writer. I think the artist on this one, I'll grab his name here in a second, Andrea Baraccato. But the book is just really fun, and it explores this Spider-Man Noir world that he has. Throwing Gwen Stacy in as this kind of femme fatale character, and then having where Peter's involved, sort of investigating the circumstances around the death of her father, and then him being responsible for the death and how he's trying to portray that and balance it. I think it's just a really cool thing that they're balancing. This also takes place in the late 30s, so you get kind of that tinge of Nazis and fascism and things like that that was around at the time, and that sort of pre-World War II panic that's there. Overall, I just thought this was a really fun comic book. It's got great art, it's got a great atmosphere to it. And that pre-World War II setting to me just always makes for great comic books. It just kind of portrays very Indiana Jones style. The Nazis are the bad guys, and it's good to see Spider-Man punch Nazis in a comic book. And so I think that's a lot of fun. But overall, I think this is good atmosphere, good writing, sharp dialogue. Overall, I would recommend it. I think this is a fun series that really takes advantage of the time period that it's written in. So I think you'll have a lot of fun with Spider-Man Noir if you check that one out as well. I'll pivot to the two DC books for this week. I'm probably out on a limb with this book by myself here, but this Superman the Kryptonite Spectrum book. This is the fourth issue of 5. It's a zany, I mean, you can just kind of tell from the cover. This is a zany, crazy comic book, and this is normally not my speed. What I will say with this is it's kind of a stupid comic book, but it's so well intentioned, it's well written. It's having fun, and it explores sort of the Silver Age period of Superman in a more modern sort of context, but not modern in the way that we do things now. Just it's a modern version of a Silver Age comic, and I think the dedication that these artists and writers have in this book, I think it's the team that did the Ice Cream Man series. Um, it just really shines through their love for Silver Age comic books and some of the more zany and ridiculous things that are in there. You've had this sort of storyline where these different versions of Kryptonite have showed up, and you've had some parts where Superman has had to deal with, experimenting with those and teaming up with Batman. And I just think there's a lot of fun things with this. It does some cool narrative things. This involves Mr. Mixoplick in this version, in this issue. I just think it's a really fun series. I would encourage you to check it out if you like Silver Age stuff. It's not going to be for everybody. I'll fully say that. If you don't like the zany kind of Silver Age comic books, this is not going to be for you. If you want something more grounded, this is not going to be for you. But I think it's okay for comic books to have fun. And I think one of the cool things with this is you can tell these guys have a lot of love for Superman and a lot of love for the medium. And I think that's great to see. So I would encourage people checking that out. The one thing I will say caveat on this, I think it is a $5.99 price point. It's a little bit higher. It is a little more page count than you typically get in your DC comics, but definitely can see the price point being something that pushes people away. Last DC book I'll recommend, Action Comics 1092. This is Mark Waid's continuing adventures of kind of Superboy that are taking place in this. And I think Mark Waid has really captured some great things with this. This was the strongest issue, I think, of this run so far that he's had. But having this early sort of age Superman who's getting used to his powers and facing the whole Superboy thing that's been in and out of continuity, I think it's really interesting to see. And I thought one of the cool things that he did in this kind of had a Smallville vibe to it in the comic book, where he was balancing a lot of, Clark adjusting to his powers, learning how to use things. There's a really cool moment in here where he saves someone, but he does it, in a way where he's inexperienced, and it causes issues for him. I just think it's really cool when they explore Superman in that way. One of the things I love about Mark Waid writing Superman, especially this Action Comics run, is, so often Superman gets portrayed as a little bit distant from humanity at times, in that because of his powers, he comes off like this godlike character. And that's especially been around the last 10 or 12 years. And I love when they do comic book stories like this that really emphasize the humanity of Superman and the challenges that would be there with those powers and how to use those, and how, the smallest mistake for someone who is as powerful as he is could cause, huge ramifications for him. And that just shines through in this book of how much Mark Waid likes Superman and exploring that. I thought it was really, really good. I think the art throughout it's decent. I think Torme's the artist on it. It's pretty good, but I think the storytelling Waid is doing is just so strong with this. I would recommend checking out this Action Comics run, the Superboy part. I think it's a really cool and different book. And I love when the main continuity comic like Superman and Action Comics really differentiate themselves, where you don't feel like you're just getting the same thing just in a different comic book. I love that there's really two distinct storylines going on, and I think that's really cool. Uh, last two books for the week that I'll mention. As expected, Conan the Barbarian, number 26. Jim's Fernando Dagnino on this. Kicks off a new arc. This had a really, really cool story too, and you see Conan kind of being a more of a military leader. But I think Fernando Dagnino's art is just fantastic. You look here, kind of this two-page spread that he has there. I think he's just killing on art. He's become a great Conan artist. And this story is really just setting up some building and escalating conflicts that are happening. Mike and I are going to do a longer form breakdown on this issue and on Savage Sword that came out up here this weekend. But overall, I would recommend this. I think this is another great arc for Conan, and I think Fernando Dagnino continues to just get more and more used to drawing Conan. I would say from the first issue that he did to now, there's a ton of improvement, and so it's really cool to see that. But Conan just continues to be the best book on the market, and does a great job here with issue 26. Last book, Redcoat number 15. Great week for Redcoat fans. Apparently, this has been optioned into movies as well. So hopefully, with Jeff Johns involved, you might be getting a Redcoat movie coming out. But really cool issue. This was a slower issue, but basically, one of the cool things of having a character like Simon Pure be an immortal is that they can explore different time periods. And so this really kind of explores the time where he stopped fighting, he stopped doing things, he tried to settle down. And so there's a really cool kind of slice of life thing to this character that you've seen go through all these adventures and where he's actually trying to build a life. And obviously we know from, the narrative that's not going to work, but I think it's really cool. And I thought it was a cool creative decision for them to really stop and show the humanity of the character and kind of show why he is how he is now. And I thought that was a really cool issue. They also bring back Albert from the first couple of issues of this and have them reunite. And I think Redcoat has just continually been a surprise. It's so well written. It seems so well planned out. And I give Ghost Machine a ton of credit. I think they're doing a fantastic job with this series. Brian Hitch continues to kill it on art with this. But it's a bit of a slow issue. It's a bit of a slowdown, but the book has earned that. And I think that's the cool thing with the Redcoat is when reading this issue is the first time I realized how invested I was in the characters of this universe and that this is an issue that would normally frustrate me. Normally an issue that's focused on talking and building and stuff like that. I'd be like, it's a comic book. Come on, can we get some action? But because they've done such a good job with this character and they've built him over the past couple of years and really done great with it, you're invested and you love seeing it. And it's interesting to see a pivot on that. So I think an excellent issue for this week. That's our best recommendations for the week. Hopefully Mike will be back here in a couple videos. He's been on a trip for a bit, so hopefully he'll be back with us. But let me know what your list is down below, what comics you read. If you enjoyed these, agree or disagree, folks. Appreciate seeing your opinions down below. As always, thank you for watching. God bless you. You have a great day.